Okay guys, this is a Randall Model 1 8-inch in carbon steel, 01, the same as the tracker. I had this knife while I was in the Army in 10th Mountain Division, and it's been to Panama and other places, and it worked great. I thought that it did a fine job, but then one day in the mail, my dad sent me this. And that is an old school, this was actually my dad's old school cold steel LTC, or light terrain chopper. Excuse the dust. And my dad sent this to me, and I wrote him back, or actually I called him back and said, hey, what am I supposed to do with this? I always thought these were called, banana knives or something like that. And he told me that he had never seen a knife that could chop better than this. Well, I took it out. We were doing some training, and I used it for chopping through some hard pine, and I learned the snap cut. And once I figured the snap cut out, this took on a whole new realm of importance to me. It bit into the hardwood so deep. So if you were trying to build a shelter or something like that and do it quickly, this was fantastic. Used it for years, or I actually had two of them. Used them for years until I ended up breaking both blades. And nothing against cold steel. They did a replacement policy, was great, no questions asked. But because the knife was so thin, right there, from heavy chopping on hardwoods, they broke. So anyway, that led me to kukris, learning about them. This was from Himalayan Imports. It's over a 1/4 inch thick and does a great job. I used this style of blade for a long time whenever I was camping. The thing is, and what I found interesting, you would think because of the weight difference, because there's quite a bit of weight difference, that this would way out chop this, but that's not the case. Because of the thinner edge profile, it could dig in deeper. This could be beat through any kind of hardwood knots or anything like that, baton through, no problem at all. I was never worried about it breaking, but it really couldn't go as deep into, when we're talking about hardwoods, as well as the LTC. My experience is this: whether it be a bowie like this, a lightweight bowie like this, a thin machete type knife, a thick kukri, or like the WSK, you're not limited to the depth of the cut in the hardwood by how sharp the edge is. You're limited by the friction that is on either side. As the blade penetrates into the wood, the sides act like they act like a clamp, and they tighten down on either side, and that's where your stop will be. This is what actually slows down the cut, not the edge. It's the friction along the sides. That's one of the reasons why a convex edge works so well. Little less friction there. And the reason why this did so great was simply because it wasn't spreading the wood apart that much. So when we talk about chopping, and we're talking about the ability to chop, whether it be a handheld hatchet, like, about that size, a kukri, a bowie, whatever. The bottom line is you can only chop so deep into wood. No matter what type of knife you have or hatchet, it's still going to jam along the sides at a certain depth. That's why, for me, this, which is just shy of a 7-inch blade, does just fine, because I might have to take 1 or 2 more whacks compared to a full-size kukri or that LTC, but it's not, those are not that much more of an advantage than this. So anyway, that's my take on the chopping ability. As you guys saw in the previous video, it was just no problem at all going through those roots and that sapling. So let's look at the WSK design and the different angles and what they can be used for. From butt to tip, you have a really strong semi-point here that can be used for crushing. The scales, as I've mentioned before, have 3 separate grips and also a 4th just in case you want to use the saw. The balance point is right here, so in your hand it feels really light. To do curls, the famous tracker curls, which like this, I grab on either side of the scales, which is handy because the scales are thick enough that you have a really good solid purchase. You have the saddle here for batoning, saw teeth, which for notching, scraping, even meat tenderizing, according to some folks. I haven't tried that out yet. Good strong point. Up front here is the curve, which I end up grabbing up here a lot when I'm carving and making things. When you're batoning with a WSK or tracker design, it's a little bit different. I'm sure you guys have probably batoned through some pretty thick stuff before with your knives, and usually you get up right up against it, take the stick, beat back here until you're down through it. On thick items, sometimes you'll get about that far down and you get jammed up. The design for the WSK is different, where you put only the front section where you want to baton, and then you hit back here along the little saddle, and you can see as that's driving down through. The nice thing about this is you always have places to hit the entire way down, and if it's thicker, you can still pry your blade out just in case you get stuck. So I think it's kind of a clever idea. This wood is a long straight grain. It's been aged for a couple years now. It's a very hard wood. I can just barely put any kind of indentation with my thumbnail. And what I was going to show is how well the double saw teeth notch. So when I do this, let's see if I can get this in the camera. I use my thumb blocked up against the trigger guard, and with my pinky, I put the lanyard. That way I don't slide all over the place. Okay, here we go. Make sure that's where you guys can see it. Okay. Okay. And this over here. So that's just with a few swipes of the WSK and its ability to notch. You can also use the saw portion of the blade to get really fine tinder just by rubbing it across. Use my scarf here. These little bitty fine shavings catch a strike from a ferro rod really fast. If the wood on the outside is wet, split it and split it again. Use what you have on the inside that's dry. Works really good. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the blade back here. I'm going to rest the handle on my leg so that takes any weight. We'll scrape off that outer layer of bark. Grab like this, use it like a scraper. By holding right through here, the balance point works to my advantage, especially when I'm dealing with pieces where the knots are at. You guys can tell there's a knot and a gap there. Okay guys, so today has been kind of crazy with on again, off again thunderstorms where you couldn't have heard me at all. But right now, most of the outer bark and that inner cambium layer are off the stick except for the root ball right there. We'll be doing some carving on that. And you guys get to see a few different ways of holds and grips. Next video will be cleaning up all the bark and then getting in more into some carving. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it gives you some ideas about the different ways you can use that style of blade. Talk to you later. Bye.